is a total spoofer. When I being a spoofer, this is bullshit.
Wolves coming back from that tight position, but Shane Long was definitely onside. Shane Long has done it!
I'm going to enjoy tonight.
And you should as well.
Thanks very much.
Well done. Unless he's breastfeeding, he should be alright.
There are cowboy boots on Dublin streets and cowboy hats on the Lewis. American country singer Morgan Wallen was playing at the Tree Arena on Saturday night, but not even he could hold a candle to some of the Cowboys in the FAI suite of Lansdowne Road. They watched on as Ireland lost 2-0 to England in the opening game of this year's Nations League, and if we're being honest, it probably could have been more. Welcome to the Ireland Radar podcast. You're joined by me, your host Ronan Calvert. There's no Joseph Murray this week, he's away, but I am still joined by James French and Dylan Hudson. So lads, yeah, to get straight into it, what was your broader opinion on yesterday's game?
Overall thoughts, probably a difficult kind of one to analyse briefly, but in terms of the match itself, kind of just probably have to talk about the atmosphere considering it was just brilliant. Like, I've seasoned the goal for 10 years, like, and the only game that's probably rivaled it is recently, from recent memory anyway, is France, and in my opinion the atmosphere last night probably topped that, like, even with the anthems and stuff and the whole feel around the stadium. Like, it was just really optimistic. Obviously new manager in charge, it's always going to be the case. When the England come to town, like, the atmosphere is always going to be huge, and then that bubble kind of burst within the first half an hour, which is, it's just really disappointing. Like, and you could just feel the whole stadium kind of deflate. Not really just with the two goals. Obviously the two goals caused that, but in terms as well, just how we were playing, there didn't seem to be much of a genuine game plan other than sit in a really low block with 5 defenders across the pitch, and our out ball is kind of playing it long up that Amida, which is like that's the one bit I really don't understand. Is like, John O'Shea's obviously had 4 friendlies and he was part of Kenny's coaching staff, and he knows Adamida's strengths and weaknesses. Adamida may be 6'3", but like, from watching him for Ireland and as a Celtic fan as well, like, he's not good in the air, like, and he doesn't like the physical battle with defenders, and you seen that out there. Like, he just looked really bad, and to be fair for the balls that were coming up to him, but he just looked a really bad player, and Adamide isn't a bad player, but it's just not his strength. So kind of come back to the point on the match, and without kind of going into Adamide too much, yeah, literally the first 30 minutes it kind of bursts, and then we get to half time, and I think it would have been very difficult for us to come out and not improve on that first half performance. Like, genuinely probably the worst half of football I've seen in the Aviva Stadium since maybe the O'Neill era. And that's the result. It kind of is one kind of obviously negative, but I think most Irish fans would have went in knowing we were up against it. But it's just like doing the same things and expecting different results, going with the 5 back again, and with Doherty and Brady as wing-backs, when these guys haven't been at their peak or their prime for maybe 3 or 4 years. They don't have the physical kind of attributes anymore to play in a 3-back at club level, never mind international level, and especially when you're playing a team of the quality of England. So that's kind of my main takeaways, is just mainly about how we set up and how it didn't work. Obviously that 20 minutes in the second half was good, but like, England knew the game was over. I don't think you can really read too much into that, and even Heimer said that himself. So, and then kind of the comments after is probably my biggest worry, is about Heimer talking about hopefully after time that he'll have more authority, which I kind of hope is a mistranslation, because that kind of comment after the game is pretty worrying. So yeah, all positive.
Yeah, I was kind of thinking the same myself along those lines in terms of who's actually responsible here. And something that struck me is, like, is it a valid excuse for Heimer to say he's only had a couple of training sessions here? Or at this stage, should we be expecting him, it was appointed 2 months ago now, so should we have expected him to have done his work already and have worked obsessively to get up to speed? I don't think it's normal to have a manager shadowing in his first international window. So interested to hear your thoughts on that.
Yeah, look, to be fair, the FAI could do nothing about this. They only had 9 months to appoint a manager and 2 international windows where they could have had a permanent manager in and had more than 3 days, to be fair to them, not enough time. But like, sarcasm aside, it's hard to go into a game like that when you have no expectation. My I wasn't at the ground myself. I had other commitments, so watched the game on the player. But to go into a game with no expectation other than to have a good time, it's the first time the Aviva is full for a while. Like, the last couple of games have been Terry Towers and dull atmosphere, and just try and make the most of it. But to go into that and still end up disappointed, I think we learned nothing really about the manager, which is, one of my things I was looking forward to most about the game. It really felt like not only the exact same style of play, the exact same way we played, even from the way that the players lined up to what John O'Shea was doing the last few games. I noticed John O'Shea liked to keep the kind of players in behind Ida kind of narrow, and noticed all the first half was not working. I thought had his like fingerprints all over the style of play, but just utterly disappointing. I think on top of, we'll probably get further on to O'Shea stuff, but over the last year or two, maybe even longer, even the Kenny reign, I think everything that I've ever complained about in our style of football was in that match. I think there was no plan in attack. When we got the ball, when we weren't hoofing it, it was aimlessly passing around, and I don't know how we could do that with such little possession. Is impressive. It just seemed like Ogbene was running at players, and he was doing his absolute best, and he got man of the match, and I think he deserved it in the end, but really had no other options. I mean, one of my things that I complain about the most, and I think last week I had said that it doesn't make sense to get away from the wing-back system when our midfield was so weak, which obviously got shown today, or not today, but during the game when we expected that. But to play wing-backs without the pace, it's like you're playing with less attackers. You need the players to get up and down. Like Robbie Brady, obviously fantastic servant for the country. I think he'll probably forever be one of my favourite international players. And Matt Doherty, they don't have the legs to get up and down. And when you're playing those as your wing-backs, you expect them to be the ones driving you forward. It's just not going to work. And I think unless they find a way to be more creative with that wing-back system, maybe use the players like Ogbene or, Festi Ebizelli in the lineup to put a bit of pace into the side, because poor Ida up front, he'd get the ball. And again, as James said, he's not a target man, even though he's built like one. He didn't know what to do with it, and he didn't have time to do with it because he didn't have help. It felt like the players were a different side of the pitch to him all game, and it just utterly disappointing. And then even the defensive side of things, under Kenny, we conceded a lot of goals outside the box from sitting too deep, and I think England's second goal, the Grealish one, was just, again, player at the edge of the box, wasn't exactly outside the box, but goal comes from the back line being too deep, and there's no one to close the player down. And it's just, I think it's a real testament to the style of play at the moment, where we're trying to set up as a defensive, pragmatic side, and we can't even do that right.
Yeah, that struck me as well. Like, we're talking about being pragmatic and being careful. I mean, I'd love to know what we did that suggested that was our plan, because watching it, England got so much joy down the sides. Overall, Ireland had 29% of possession, one shot on target, 147 passes completed. There's only 40 passes completed after the first 40 minutes, which is a real Martin O'Neill stat. So I was watching it. The thing that struck me, and it might have struck you as well, was that from our own kickouts, Kelleher especially, who's such a good passer of the ball, a lot of the time it just looked like there's no pictures for our players to work with, and that they had to go long a lot of the time fairly hopelessly. What were the elements that disappointed you the most from yesterday's game, James?
Yeah, to kind of touch on Dylan's point, there didn't seem to be like a genuine game plan to what we were actually trying to do. Like, you can sit in a low block and 5 across like the defensive third and hope to stay out for 90 minutes. I hope that wasn't the game plan. Like Holland and France, we've came to the Aviva over the last year or two. We managed 79% pass completion against the Dutch and 81 against France. And both games we lost by a single goal. And then obviously last night I think it was 68% pass completion. And obviously we were absolutely outclassed in every department. So this whole kind of narrative that going back to basics and lumping the ball up the pitch is going to get us results even in any kind of facet is just it's just not going to happen. And in terms of especially on your point, Rona, with the kickouts, I was watching Smallbone and Malumbi in midfield, just standing there, not showing for the ball. Will Smallbone is a technically really sound player, playing in a a possession-based team with Southampton in the Premier League starting. I think he's played nearly every minute for them so far this season. He's not looking to to get the ball in midfield. Like, what's the plan for build up? Like, is it just kind of lump it forward? Ida's on, or three defenders on Ida nearly, with the three centre backs. Gay who tries in the air, like, and it was that the plan, like trying to build up. Like, I don't see what the plan was to, like, even transitions in build up. Like, we just didn't look like we had a concrete plan. And even a couple of moments with Ogbene running down alleys. I know I got man of the match, and Ogbene's, we know his qualities, obviously his pace, and he's a direct player, which is what we need at the moment. But like, he gave the ball away like numerous times. Jason Malumbi as well was kind of running down cul-de-sacs at points. I know, we kind of hyped him up before the game, but he just, like, we know what he's good at. Jason, like, he works really hard, and that's not something you can fault him on. But like at one stage I seen him kind of just run into the corner and trying to take on three lads, like, and I think them little moments happen when you don't have a concrete game plan going into this. Which I know that Kenny, and I'm not a Kenny guy obviously anymore, and I had my own kind of qualms with Kenny. But if you look at just the two games in isolation, the Dutch and France, similar kind of games to the one last night, playing elite teams, they're both coming to the Aviva. If you look at the difference in game plans, I think it is stark, and that would be my biggest worry, especially to touch on Dylan's point with that it just kind of had the look of John O'Shea's fingerprints all over it, which is really worrying considering how poor watch those four friendlies were in the build up to this one.
Yeah, can we just talk a little bit more about that? So for me, you look like a very O'Shea-led performance, and if we're being real, it probably was. Having watched his friendlies and having watched yesterday, what's our opinion on his credentials as potentially becoming the next Ireland manager, say after Heimer finishes his contract? It seems like he's kind of being prepared for that role.
Credentials, I don't think he should have any. Just on the basis that, you know, he's not being a coach. I don't look. I'm of the opinion that I think international football is a completely different game to club football. So I don't even think he needs to go out and go and be a club football manager. But John O'Shea has come into the interim period, and fine as an interim coach, of course, when you're not expecting much. But to say that he should have a first team job after a fairly disappointing interim period, where again the style of play was that there was none. It was very clear that there was no ideas in attack, which is why, as I said, I thought it was John O'Shea influence, because you could see there was no patterns of play or anything like that. It was just get the ball from defence to attack and not think about it. But if John O'Shea really wanted this job, he should be with an underage group, whether it be at a club side, a different international side. Like, I don't see what he's going to learn as Ireland like assistant manager. Clearly, like we've seen from the friendlies, didn't pick up that much from learning under Kenny, even as unsuccessful as Kenny's stint was. I don't get it. And I think if you ask most international fans, they won't want the same. Like, they won't want John O'Shea in either. And it's kind of mad that we're talking about this under, a new manager's first game, that we're talking about 18 months down the line about who his successor is going to be. But it's just a bit of a crazy situation between kind of how the FAI have approached it, about the manager's comments himself, about how kind of, it's been in the media with any RT pundit, like any chance they get to push John O'Shea down our throats after watching a couple of horrible friendlies under him, and still push him as a positive. I don't know. And look, before he started with us, when we were in the midst of looking for a manager, I did say I wouldn't mind him giving a go, because at the end of the day, if it's someone the players like, which was the impression, and the Irish, they might get behind them. But it's telling. And I think the frustration from people saying that you can, like, as we are now, saying that you can tell John O'Shea's fingerprints were all over that performance, tells you what they'd think if he was given a coaching job, or first team coaching job for the country.
Yeah, there's probably some strange enough selections thrown in there as well. I'm wondering, James, what was your opinion on, well, just kind of the trend, first of all, of him picking Smodics wide in the left? That seems like a waste of his attacking talents, and it kind of showed when he came infield. He is a threat centrally, so Yeah, what do you think of that trend over the O'Shea friendlies, and maybe Coleman's selection at right centre back probably raised some eyebrows as well, considering how many centre backs we have who are kind of so talented. So yeah, what have you made of O'Shea's selections, not just yesterday, but over the course of the last 4 or 5 games?
Yeah, I think to talk about kind of selection, you probably nearly have to go back to the squad. I think obviously first manager, first kind of squad selection, playing England, I don't think there was probably much attention paid to the squad picked, and which is fair enough. I don't think we really covered it that kind of in depth either, and a lot of people kind of excited for this game or last night's game, which is rightly so. But I think the omission of the likes of a Finn Azaz and Jamie McGrath, when you look back at it now, is kind of. I'm not saying if them two players play against England that we win, but even for the Greece game coming up, kind of not having those two really creative players isn't really great. But yeah, to kind of touch on Smodics out on the left wing, I think most people would probably tell you that it's not his best position. Probably doesn't really have the speed to kind of play out there. And then Coleman at right centre back. I'd probably more of an experience thing more than anything. Not really wanting to play a right wing back because of his pace deficiencies, but then Matt Doherty's out there, so I don't really know. Maybe you could have said that Liam Scales comes in, considering he's starting every week for Celtic, and move him over to the left side, then shift O'Shea one over. But I think you kind of have to look back to the squad selection and how much of that was John O'Shea's. And I don't want to make the whole podcast kind of just us just blaming John O'Shea for the result, but I just think that it would have made a lot more sense for Heimer to come in with a clean slate and kind of bring in his own right hand man rather than just kind of doing the easy option and keeping O'Shea there. But that's obviously happened now, and yeah, I just think it just kind of baffles me some of the selection kind of decisions, the Smodics and Coleman one mainly, the ones you mentioned.
Yeah, and I'm wondering, is there a solution to this in terms of formation or personnel changes? We got a message in from Ken Carmody, who said he was a big fan of the Kenny project, but now we're at such a low ebb, and after recent games, do you feel we should be trying to grind out results with an ugly 4-5-1 smother approach just to get some confidence back in the side, as losing can become a habit? So Dylan, what do you think of that particular suggestion of 4-5-1 as opposed to a 5-4-1?
I mean, I think anything that's going to make us first and foremost defend better will be welcomed. You know, when you, as I touched on earlier, when you play a defensive system, but like we did against England and have done in the last couple of games, but still look out of ideas defensively, maybe it signals it's a time for a change. I mean, I don't think we've mentioned so much that, look, you were never going to expect to win out of this game. And at the end of the day, player for player, there's probably not, well, definitely not one Irish player on the pitch that gets into that England team. But it's I would have liked to see something in that game, something to take out. And I think maybe a 4-5-1 smother is just another variation of what we're doing there. I don't know. It's hard to know what to ask for when we haven't seen much of the manager. I think Greece is going to be a telling game. Again, I'll touch on James' point when exciting players like Finn Azaz aren't brought into the squad. Players that are getting called up recently playing regular football, even the likes of Andy Moran, who was good in the under-21s against Turkey the last day. You know, I know it's technically competitive games, but these, the game against Greece should be a time to try new formations. I definitely think we should try something different. We've seen for a number of years now that this wing-back system isn't working. Now, whether or not is it because we're using the wrong personnel, or maybe it's just the system doesn't work at all. But we should probably get to see more on that. Also, to touch on James's point again on moving away from Kenny ball and stuff like this with the manager, and was he the right choice? All these different things. It does seem it's hard not to go back to the 9-month process that was to get this manager in. I don't know. I think there's a sour taste still left from it. I think there was a lot that went out to the press far too easily. I think a lot of Heimer, to give him credit or to give him a bit of sympathy, he's come into a difficult situation. Obviously, England in the first game, something he's never going to expect it to win. Greece aren't an easy side, but to come around where Irish fans have felt bad about the FAI forever, and rightfully so. And you see Roy Keane's comments the other day about them. But the feeling around the national team is the worst it's ever been, I think, or the worst I remember in recent years. And I don't know what's going to fix that, to be honest. And I think before we can be successful on the pitch again, there just needs to get to a stage where I think the fans and the players are, well, the players most importantly, are starting to enjoy the national team again. Because, I mean, you look at the game, they're playing England. They don't have to win the game to come out with a bit of pride. They just have to play, with a bit of passion. And as soon as they could see the first goal, the heads were down. They already lost the game, and it kind of went into try and avoid embarrassment, which, I don't know what can you do about that.
Yeah, and funnily enough, after that process, I see there today, Mark CANHAM has in his LinkedIn that he's been upgraded to FAI's Chief Football Officer. So, round of applause for Mark. And I just wonder, now having had Irish fans waiting this long to finally have a manager, I mean, Heimer probably should have a kind of a spell where he can, afford to maybe not get results and mould his team his way. But I think that's a dream world at this stage. Do you think, James, that it's probably true that Heimer now is going to be under more pressure than he should be? As in, because Irish fans are so impatient because of Mark CANHAM and FAI's inability to find someone for so long. It's been like a year since basically everyone knew Stephen Kenny was leaving. Does Heimer actually have to maybe show something on Tuesday, and does he have to make sure he gets some kind of results in the coming games before this turns quite toxic for a number of reasons?
Yeah, I think obviously Dylan touched on the hiring process and the kind of ridiculous length of time it took the FAI to put a manager in charge. That's obviously all going to contribute to just a negative atmosphere around the national team, which is all the atmosphere was already at a pretty low ebb considering the results over the last few campaigns. Irish football fans have suffered. I'm not going to play the victim, but they've suffered a lot the last couple of campaigns with just being out of a campaign before it even starts. So that is all going to add to the pressure really on Heimer in the coming fixtures, especially in games that we are going to have more expectation to get a result. But I think the main takeaway from a lot of Irish supporters would have been the lack of any a real kind of stamp or print put by Hal Grimson on that performance against England. It just was very much kind of more of John O'Shea, and I think that is probably the main worry that Irish football fans will have going into Greece. Listen, I think you kind of don't want to be too negative because it's his first game, and let's just say that there was a concrete game plan. England got on top of us. They got that early goal and that killed the game, and our players' heads went down and straight away from that game plan, which is best case scenario. And here we're sitting here next Sunday talking about a really good performance against Greece, not even a win, but just a performance and a kind of team that performs somewhat kind of different to what we've seen against England and what we've seen in the friendlies under O'Shea. I think that's kind of the main concern from Irish fans, that it's just he hasn't really shown his tactical style, and it is only his first game, but that'd probably be the biggest worry.
I probably wasn't even speaking to them. They weren't speaking to me. It's probably what my wife does to me when I'm in trouble, and she gets a better husband in the end.
Well, listen, we've won. We shouldn't be here. Little old shells, as people call us. Everyone hates us, I think. We're in the division for another year, and we're in a final. Hey, it doesn't get any better. Well done. Thanks, Tony.
There's wars absolutely everywhere. I'd happily be a barista.
Well, listen, the guys are in there singing songs. You just want to be careful what you play.
So if this doesn't work out, you might see me in a coffee shop.
On a more positive note, the Irish under-21s are in action against Turkey on Friday, and they come out as 1-0 winners. They play Latvia on Tuesday, and if they win, they'll go top of the group, 1 point clear of Italy. So there was some positive news in Irish football this week at least. And James, you were watching it. Were you impressed by Jim Crawford's side?
Yeah, listen, huge results like Turkey. We obviously know they were at the Euros in the summer and done really well. Kind of have a bit of a golden generation coming through there. And that 21 team that Ireland faced here, and I would have lost a couple of them guys. And I know they have a couple of injuries as well, kind of Crawford mentioned in the build-up, but it's still like it's a brilliant result for them. That Turkish side has a lot of players kind of playing first team football in the Turkish league, which is a reasonable level, like, do you know what I mean? And the performance on the night, I caught most of the game. First half, we kind of started off fairly nervy. Was probably nearly too conservative. I think Crawford kind of said that after the game. And I think Turkey kind of tired going into the second half, and I think the lads really kicked on. Sam Curtis in particular, obviously grabbing the goal. I think he mentioned that maybe was it Paul McShane or someone kind of told him when they went for the water break that the Turkish left back was absolutely shattered, and that he was going to score a goal, which happened. So that's kind of nice to see. But yeah, I think this group of players is in a really good position now to kind of to qualify. I'm not gonna put the kibosh on them, but 2 games to go. I think or 3 games to go. Sorry, Latvia Tuesday, and then Norway and Italy, and it would just be kind of a huge. I don't want to put too much pressure on them, but it would be a huge achievement for them to kind of go and qualify for a major tournament. Just with the whole negativity around the national team at the minute. And there's some really, really good technical players in there as well, the likes of Joe Hodge, Andy Moran, who probably will be kind of come up to the senior team quicker than expected, considering kind of our lack of options in the midfield. But yeah, I think it like if they do manage to go and qualify, it would just kind of galvanise the football in this country, to be honest. And I think the prospect of playing international football and playing at a tournament is just like, it can do wonders for a group of players. And listen, hopefully on Tuesday they can get the result against Latvia, which I'd be fairly confident they can do, and head into their final 2 games kind of full of confidence, and hopefully they can do the job.
Yeah, and everyone was talking about Sam Curtis's performance after the game, and just as you're speaking there, we got another text message in regarding which Irish under-21 players could come through to fill that wing-back position. I feel that Doherty and Coleman are no longer up to it, and left wing-back is a serious issue. A few years ago, I would say our wing-backs were our main strength, and personally I think we need to move to a 4-at-the-back system. So not to go over old ground there, but I think Sam Curtis, most people would agree, James, is one to definitely watch in the next couple of years.
Yeah, obviously, listen, like Sam, I think Irish fans probably have been aware of him since he was playing for Pats at the age of 16. Like, he's like our best prospect at right back going forward, and he's got his move to a League One side. Like you would think if this injury is serious, with our lack of options at right back, Doherty isn't playing week in, week out, that like Sam Curtis could be given an opportunity to come up. We kind of seem to avoid calling up players playing below the championship level, which is kind of fair enough. But like when a player with Sam Curtis potential is playing week in, week out, I think calling them up probably wouldn't be the worst idea, to be honest. And even Sean Rowan, I thought he played really well the other night as well. Another kind of athletic fullback, playing his trade with Lincoln in League One as well. And I think Lincoln fans really like him, tip him to become a Premier League player as well. So we definitely have options coming up in the wing-back positions. Whether you want to take them away from the 21s, the rest of the 21s campaign is a different question. I'd probably be on the side of kind of leave them with the 21s and just give them the best opportunity qualifying for a tournament, which I have touched on is just will be huge, like for that group of players. And yeah, listen, Sam, we obviously know is a huge prospect, and obviously got the great goal last night.
Yeah, I think it'd be fantastic for everyone's spirits if the 21s could go on now and qualify, because they certainly have a fantastic chance now anyway. That's all we have time for this week, lads. Thanks for your contribution as always. And as we did last week, we're going to play you out with some music from an Irish artist. So the band they're playing this week is Cardinals from Cork, and this is their song Unreal. We'll catch you again next time. Thanks for listening. This has been Ireland Radio.